Battery 223, The Fortress Beneath the Sand. Chapter 1, The Atlantic Threat. In the dark days before America entered World War II, military planners feared something that seems almost unbelievable today: enemy warships appearing off the coast of New Jersey. The Atlantic Ocean had become a battlefield. German submarines were sinking merchant vessels at an alarming rate. Military officials worried that if the war expanded, major ports and industrial centers along the East Coast could become targets. The Delaware Bay was among the most important waterways in America. Any vessel entering the bay would gain access to the Delaware River and the industrial heartland beyond. Philadelphia's shipyards, oil refineries, ammunition factories, steel mills, and naval facilities were critical to the Allied war effort. Wilmington and Camden also housed industries essential to wartime production. To defend this gateway, the U.S. Army created an enormous coastal defense system known as the Harbor Defenses of the Delaware. At its center stood Fort Miles, supported by batteries, minefields, radar stations, anti-aircraft defenses, searchlights, and a network of fire control towers stretching along nearly 200 miles of coastline. Battery 223 would become the New Jersey side's most powerful long-range artillery position. Chapter 2, Building a Hidden Fortress. Construction began in September 1942. Unlike older brick forts with visible cannons and high walls, Battery 223 was designed according to the Army's newest 200 series battery concept. Its purpose was simple: survive. Military engineers assumed future attacks would involve aircraft, naval bombardment, and possibly chemical weapons. The bunker therefore had to withstand almost anything. The structure was built using enormous quantities of reinforced concrete. Walls reached approximately 6 feet in thickness. A blast-resistant roof protected the interior from aerial bombs and naval shells. When completed, the entire structure was buried beneath earth and sod, making it nearly invisible from the air. From offshore, enemy ships would have seen little more than natural dunes. Hidden beneath those dunes was one of the strongest military structures ever built in New Jersey. Construction cost approximately $500,000 during the war, equivalent to many millions of dollars today. Chapter 3, Anatomy of a Concrete Giant. Battery 223 was shaped roughly like a giant letter, T. The long horizontal section housed the artillery support facilities, while the stem of the T extended inland and contained operational and support spaces. The bunker contained *** 20 rooms, **, each serving a specialized purpose. The battery was effectively a self-contained underground military base. Among these rooms were the plotting room, the nerve center of the battery. Observers in distant towers relayed target information by telephone. Soldiers inside the plotting room used charts, maps, plotting boards, and calculations to determine where enemy vessels were located and where the guns needed to be aimed. The switchboard room, the communication hub. Telephone operators connected calls from observation towers, nearby batteries, headquarters, and gun crews. Every piece of information entering the battery flowed through this room. 6 shell storage rooms. These heavily reinforced rooms stored artillery projectiles. The shells were massive steel projectiles designed to strike enemy ships miles offshore. Because of their weight and danger, they were stored separately and carefully organized. 4 powder rooms. Artillery shells required propellant charges. These rooms stored the powder bags used to launch projectiles from the guns. Keeping powder separate from shells reduced the risk of catastrophic explosions. Generator complex. Battery 223 generated its own electricity. 3 diesel generators supplied power for lighting, ventilation, communications equipment, and fire control systems. If one generator failed, backups could immediately take over. Cooling equipment room. The generators produced tremendous heat. Separate cooling systems and evaporative coolers helped maintain safe operating temperatures for machinery and personnel. Chemical Warfare Service Room. Military planners feared poison gas attacks. This room housed equipment associated with chemical defense and decontamination procedures. Airlock chamber. One of the most fascinating features. The airlock could seal the bunker from outside contamination. If chemical weapons were ever used, personnel could enter and exit while minimizing exposure to toxic gases. Latrine. Even a wartime fortress needed basic facilities. The latrine allowed crews to remain inside the bunker during extended alerts or emergencies. Equipment and maintenance rooms. Several rooms housed spare parts, tools, communications equipment, and maintenance supplies needed to keep the battery operational around the clock. Chapter 4. The Invisible Eyes. Battery 223's guns were useless without information. The Atlantic horizon extends only a few miles from ground level. Enemy ships farther away would be invisible. To solve this problem, Fort Miles built a network of towering observation posts. Observers stationed in these towers continuously scanned the ocean. When a vessel appeared, 2 or more towers measured its location simultaneously. Using triangulation, soldiers calculated the target's exact position. The information traveled through dedicated telephone lines to Battery 223's switchboard room and then into the plotting room, where artillery specialists converted coordinates into firing data. The process resembled an enormous mechanical computer spread across miles of coastline. Chapter 5. A Day Inside Battery 223. Imagine entering the bunker during 1943. Outside, ocean winds whip across the dunes. Inside, the atmosphere is entirely different. Electric lights illuminate concrete corridors. Diesel generators rumble continuously in the background. Telephone operators monitor incoming reports. Plotting room personnel bend over maps and instruments. Maintenance crews inspect ventilation systems. Ammunition handlers check shell storage rooms. Officers review reports from observation towers. The air smells of machine oil, concrete dust, electrical equipment, and diesel fuel. Although no combat ever occurred here, the battery operated as if an attack could happen at any moment. Training exercises were constant. Crews rehearsed loading procedures. Communication drills occurred regularly. Targeting calculations were practiced repeatedly. Every soldier knew exactly where they would go and what they would do if enemy ships appeared offshore. Chapter 6. The Guns Above. Above the bunker stood 2 6-inch coastal defense guns. Although not as large as Fort Miles' famous 16-inch guns across the bay, these weapons were still formidable. They could fire heavy projectiles approximately 9 miles offshore and engage enemy vessels attempting to approach Delaware Bay. The guns sat on reinforced mounts connected to the bunker below. Ammunition moved from storage rooms through a carefully planned logistics system. Every component of the battery was designed for efficiency. If combat had occurred, crews would have worked with almost assembly line precision. Chapter 7. The War Comes Close. Although Battery 223 never engaged enemy ships, the threat was real. German U-boats operated off the East Coast during 1942 and 1943. Merchant ships burned within sight of American beaches. Tankers exploded offshore. Sailors lost their lives only a few hundred miles from Battery 223's guns. For the soldiers stationed there, war was not an abstract concept. Every incoming report carried the possibility that the next sighting could be hostile. Yet no German battleship or raider ever appeared within range. The battery's guns fired only during tests and training exercises. Chapter 8. Obsolete Before Victory. Ironically, Battery 223 became outdated almost as soon as it was completed. Military technology evolved rapidly. Aircraft became more powerful. Radar improved. Missiles were beginning to emerge. Large fixed gun batteries increasingly appeared to belong to a previous era. As Allied victories mounted and the threat to America's coastline diminished, the Army began reducing coastal defense operations. The massive modernization program was never fully completed. Chapter 9: The Cold War Transformation. Most coastal batteries were abandoned. Battery 223 received a second life. During the Cold War, the U.S. Navy adapted the bunker as a radio communications facility. A reinforced concrete pad was poured onto the roof. A Quonset hut was installed above the original structure. Instead of artillery crews, communications personnel used the site to support naval operations. The fortress remained useful, even though its original mission had vanished. Chapter 10: The Ocean Returns. When Battery 223 was completed, it sat roughly 900 feet from the water. Nature had other plans. Decades of coastal erosion gradually pushed the shoreline closer. The protective dunes disappeared. The buried bunker emerged. Wooden support pilings that once lay hidden beneath the sand became visible. Waves began reaching the structure itself. By the early 2000s, there were concerns that the ocean might eventually surround the bunker entirely. Beach replenishment projects ultimately helped preserve the site. Chapter 11: The Sealed Interior. Today, visitors can walk right up to Battery 223. What they see is only the shell. Most of the interior remains sealed and inaccessible. Behind those sealed entrances are the remnants of the plotting room, switchboard room, shell magazines, powder rooms, generator spaces, airlock, latrine, cooling systems, and maintenance areas that once formed a functioning wartime fortress. The silence inside contrasts sharply with the organized activity that once filled those rooms. Epilogue: The Last Watch. Battery 223 never fought a battle. No enemy warship was destroyed. No medals were earned in combat. Yet the structure remains one of the best preserved World War II coastal defense bunkers in New Jersey. It stands as a monument to preparation, engineering, and a time when Americans feared war might arrive directly on their shores. The 6 shell rooms are empty. The powder magazines are silent. The switchboard no longer rings. The plotting room no longer calculates firing solutions. But the bunker remains, staring out at the Atlantic just as it did in 1943. A concrete giant on the beach. A fortress beneath the sand. A silent guardian that spent its entire existence waiting for a battle that never came.